Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Nate. I also go by Hockey Boy Nate. And today, we are going to be getting back into the threat of severe weather as we head into the latter stages of this weekend all the way into the beginning of next week. But before we get started, please be sure to leave a like? What? Leave a like on my video, subscribe if you're new, and turn on notifications so that you may be a part of all my channel activities. That would be greatly appreciated. I also have timestamps in the video so that if you want to go to a specific day, feel free to do so. I have the days right here in front of you, so if you guys want to pay attention to my screen real quickly, this is what all is happening on Saturday. So this is mainly for places in Texas and Louisiana. This is what's happening on Sunday, which gets further into extreme eastern parts of Texas, into Louisiana, and all the way into Mississippi. And then we also have what's happening on Monday, which is really interesting in my honest opinion as to what all could be transpiring. But we'll get into that later on in the video. So if you guys want to go into those specific parts of the video, timestamps, chapters, all of that is in the description down below, or however way you want to approach that. That would be greatly appreciated. All right, let's talk about today here first off. This is Saturday. This is May 1st. So we're turning a new chapter in the year of 2021, and we already have a marginal risk for practically most of south central to central parts of Texas, all the way into eastern parts of Texas and into western parts of Louisiana. Dallas, Waco, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, Corpus Christi, Brownsville, all of you are in this risk, as well as Shreveport and Alexandria. So if you guys live over there, I'd highly pay attention to these storms as this continues to move on through. It is a 1 out of 5 on the severe weather scale, though. It's a marginal risk, so you do have a small chance for severe weather, but if you do have severe weather, I highly recommend paying attention. 5% chance for hail, so most of you guys are having a 5% chance of 1-inch size hail or larger. Nothing really to add more onto that. 5% chance for wind. So it's a very it cuts off places like Del Rio in the most case. I'm not having a good day today, chat. Not having a great recording session here, but 5% chance of you seeing 58-mile-per-hour winds or above, and then a 2% chance for tornadoes. I decided to include the cities here just to have geographical location with this. So Dallas, you're in the 2%. Waco, you're in the 2%. Austin, San Antonio, Houston, Corpus Christi, you are in the 2%. Brownsville, Del Rio, you are not in the 2%. So you guys most likely will not have a chance for tornadoes here today. But those other areas, you do have a small chance for tornadoes, a very small chance, a 2% chance for tornadoes within a 25-mile radius. All right, let's take a look at the timings here, and if you guys want to pay attention as to when this all is happening, look up at the top of your screen. You'll be able to see what all is happening by then and around what time it's happening. So here's 11 a.m., more towards the late morning into the afternoon hours. You can see a lot of scattered storms, but then they start to form more into a consolidated line, and I'll actually move my face over so that you guys may be able to see. But more into a consolidated line here with some scattered storms off the coast of Brownsville and Corpus Christi. And so as that continues to move on through, that's when it starts to really form into this kind of segment, and it'll really push on through, create some scattered storms throughout the vicinity. It'll start heading off into the Dallas area right around 9 o'clock in the evening, and it'll be impacting places like Houston a little later than that. Corpus Christi should be out of the risk, as well as San Antonio. You guys should be out of the risk by the 9 o'clock hours, which may, for the most part, means that you'll be getting your thunderstorms relatively into the afternoon and more or less into the evening hours, in my honest opinion. But then even after that, these storms will continue to move on through and surge later on this evening, and then it'll continue to push off into Louisiana. And so places like Shreveport, Alexandria, all the way to Lake Charles, you guys could potentially get some severe weather near the 3 o'clock hours all the way over to the 6 o'clock hours in the morning. So if there's any severe weather activity that happens late at night, hopefully you guys have your weather radios on, or if you have your emergency, or turn on your emergency notifications for your emergency alert system, that would be highly recommended. Dew points. This is the measure of the amount of moisture in the atmosphere. Anything above 60 tells you that it's relatively moist for the most part. 40s to 50s is kind of comfortable. You know, it's not like it's dry, it's not like it's moist, you know, it's just comfortable. So, for the most part, you can see with these yellows, this does indicate 60 and above, and this actually gets above the yellows into the oranges, which means upper 60s into almost 70s in some areas, and that's exactly what you see here, really moist within this environment. But just because it's moist doesn't mean that there's a lot of atmosphere, a lot of energy in the atmosphere. And if we take a look at the convective available potential energy, or CAPE, which is basically something that the thunderstorms use to create, something that is used to create thunderstorms. So what actually happens with CAPE is this is basically the measure between warm air rising and cold air sinking. And so the displacement between the two indicates convective available potential energy. So if you don't have a lot of that displacement, you're not going to have a lot of CAPE. And that's exactly what we have in most of these areas where there isn't a lot of cold air in the atmosphere. It's really warm at the surface. You know, you saw those dew points, they were in the 70s. That means the temperatures are most likely above 70 into probably the 80s, maybe even the 90s. But it's really warm up in the atmosphere as well. So because there isn't as much of that displacement between the warm air rising and cold air sinking, you don't have a lot of that energy there. And so that's the reason why the threat for severe weather isn't as significant for today as, say, the later days into Sunday and Monday, potentially even Tuesday. So definitely something to watch out for with all of that in the future. But for right now, it's pretty localized as to which areas get a lot of energy. I mean, this right here near San Antonio is practically the only area that gets above 2,000 joules per kilogram, which is what you would need for strong, severe storms. But everything else, it's pretty modest. You have most of these areas in the greens. You have some that are in the yellows, but it's just very lackluster in regards to the amount of energy here in Texas. Your low-level jet, however, is cranking. It is very much so strong coming out of the south and east. You have some low-level jet amounts in upwards of 40 knots, which would be around 45 miles per hour. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a lot of strong gusty winds here, even prior to the storms that would be moving on through over Texas. So I'd really watch out for that as this continues to transpire. But even if your low-level jet is strong, you still have to watch out for your upper-level jet. We're talking about the winds here. So this is the lower-level jet with the winds. So your wind shear is decent at the low levels. Your upper levels, it's all right. I mean, it's from the 40 to 45, maybe even 50 knot vicinity. So, you know, if there was any storms to form, it could sustain supercells. But, you know, for the most part, this is a very lackluster event in regards to the amount of energy that's in the atmosphere. And I don't foresee this doing a whole lot, but it will do some things. It will create some spotty hail. It will do some damaging winds. You do have some veering in the atmosphere between the 500 millibar jet and the 850 millibar jet. So there is something there. Something could happen with these storms. Let's take a look at an event that already is supposed to do better than this. Although I'm calling it into question a little bit myself. But yeah, there is a 2 out of 5 on the severe weather scale here in places of extreme eastern parts of Texas, northern to southern parts of Louisiana, as well as practically all of Mississippi. It does include a little bit of Alabama, but we'll get into that once we get into the timings. But there is still a 2 out of 5 for severe weather. You also have a 1 out of 5 for the surrounding areas, and then a 1 out of 5 over here in Colorado and Kansas. So we're going to have to watch out for the threat for some spotty hail and some damaging winds over there. But for the most part, it's going to be really conservative. Here's the hail outlook. So the 5 is indicated in the brown right here. The yellow is indicated as a 15%. So whether you live in the 15 or the 5%, you have that probability of seeing 1-inch sized hail or larger within 25 miles of a point or 25-mile radius. You also have your wind risk right here. Same thing, 5% brown, 15% yellow. Notice how this area didn't really change a whole lot. As a matter of fact, it practically stayed the same whereas this just kind of cut out most of Colorado. So this tells me more or less that some of the same areas will practically see the same things, within this environment. But whatever chance you have, whatever probability you have that chance of getting damaging wind gusts over 58 miles per hour. So something to really monitor as this continues to transpire. Then you also have your tornado risk. It's a 2% chance for tornadoes, but it does extend very much so into the deep south. You can see how wide it actually expands. So you do have the threat for tornadoes that is possible here on Sunday. All right, let's take a look at the timings of this event. I'm going to move my face over so that I'm not blocking the entire state of Louisiana. Totally did not just do 5 takes so that I figure that out. But if you guys want to pay attention to the time up above, feel free to do so. If I'm talking about something that looks pretty interesting and you want to know what the time is, feel free to look. So we have scattered thunderstorms that are moving on through here into Louisiana in the early morning hours and towards the sunrise hours. That'll continue to move on through as a cluster of storms, and that'll start to begin to consolidate after it becomes a cluster towards the afternoon hours into Mississippi. You have some lingering storms that are still in Louisiana and Arkansas, but for the most part, the main activity is here in Mississippi as it heads through central parts of Mississippi. So it's moving through Jackson now, and then it'll start to continue to move on through into places like Laurel, and that'll continue to just kind of really propel itself towards the east. But the good news is that the storms really start to decay as it starts to head in towards the evening and overnight hours. As you can tell here, still some lingering storms in southern parts of Arkansas, but not really too much to say from here. Dew points, for the most part, really moist across the board here. You can see how the 60s all the way up into the 70s exist here in the deep south. Really, if it gets above 60, that's when you know it's actually really moist. 40s and 50s really is kind of the comfortable weather. Not sure about you guys, but that's what I feel like. It's pretty comfortable. But once it gets up into the 60s and 70s, that's when you can feel the moisture. It becomes really muggy in the atmosphere, and so that's exactly what we have here. You have a lot of moisture, and so this could indicate that you have a lot of energy. On the contrary to what happened the day before, according to the models, it actually says here on the convective available potential energy that there actually is quite a bit of it. You have some of these yellows indicating 2,000 joules per kilogram and above, and that's exactly what you need for strong, severe thunderstorms. The convective available potential energy means, for people who don't know, is it's the displacement between the warm air rising and the cold air sinking. So if you have a bigger displacement of that, you have more energy, which actually allows you to get stronger thunderstorms, maybe even some larger amounts of hail with it. So if you have a lot of energy here, you could potentially get strong thunderstorms. So in this case, you do have a lot of it. For the most part, it stays relatively out of central to northern parts of Mississippi's way, which is the reason why I'm saying that the tornado risk could be a whole lot better here in the deep south. But something that we're going to have to monitor as this continues to move on through and to further southern parts of Mississippi into northern parts of Louisiana. But yeah, there is a lot of energy here, and this is a really big setup for the next day, from Monday into Tuesday, and we'll talk about that there a bit later on. Low-level jet, though, however, is still pretty strong. Similar to what it was the day before, you have a strong low-level jet coming from the southwest this time instead of the southeast, but still a lot of gusty winds that could be forecasted off of this. You'll probably expect some really gusty winds even out in front of these storms, so you're going to have to monitor that. Then you also have your upper level jet, which these are actually moving in the same general direction, except for down here where you actually have a lot more veering that has your winds coming from the due south. So that's the reason why I'm saying your tornado risk may be localized down here, but you still have a decent upper level jet here in the 500 millibar vicinity, to where you have some strong winds, stronger than what's happening at the surface. Because we all know that winds are typically stronger the higher and higher up you get into the atmosphere. So with your mid to upper level jet here at around 60 knots to even higher than that, it's actually not a bad event for some severe weather. All right, here is Monday's risk here. This is Monday's convective outlook. You can see there is a 2 out of 5 for severe weather across a lot of places, actually. It covers the span of a lot of states here, from the Central Plains all the way over to the Ozarks, all the way into the Ohio and Mississippi River Delta, all the way into the Ohio River Valley areas, actually. So a lot of people need to watch out for this event. And if you're in any of these areas here in the yellow, you really need to, you really need to watch out for it, especially. Some of these areas in the green could potentially get some severe weather, but it just isn't as likely, although I am still watching places in Texas here for some severe weather, so we're going to have to update you all as time gets closer and closer towards the event. We still don't have a whole lot of information on this because the time I'm recording this actually has lower resolution models, and so if you have lower resolution models, they're obviously not going to give you pinpoint accurate stuff, even though they're not really as accurate anyways. Even if they were higher resolution, it would give me a better idea as to what all could be happening. The one thing I will say is that there is a significant risk for severe weather here within the 15%. And yes, if people were asking if St. Louis is in this event, yes, you are. You are technically in the significant severe. So I would watch out for this event as well. Paducah, you guys might as well watch out. Memphis, you're on the border as well, so I wouldn't be surprised if you guys got some things. But yes, St. Louis, you're in the significant severe risk. So if you guys want to pay attention to my videos in the morning, I'll keep you guys updated more and more as time goes along. But as of right now, you guys are in a significant risk for severe weather, a 10% chance or greater of seeing significant weather of any kinds. It most likely will be for hail. Most likely will be for hail, and I'll show you guys why here in a bit. For right now, let's show you the timings, and I have to zoom out pretty much to try and get you to cover the entire area. But this is what I meant by having a lower resolution model, and you can obviously tell that it is a lot different from the analysis that we've been doing in the prior 2 days. So, don't take this with, don't take this as if this is, exactly what is going to happen. Number one, we're still 3 days out. Number two, it's a lower resolution model, which means that it won't pick up a whole lot of specifics within this event. So that's the reason why you do not see times up here at the top of your screen. It's just one of those things where I don't think it's going to be exactly correct. But here's Monday morning. Monday morning seems pretty quiet for the most part, all the way into the afternoon. What is going on? There's nothing happening. Most of you guys are probably, about to chew off my heads. There's no severe weather event. Nothing's gonna happen. Until it gets into the overnight hours. And I wasn't looking at this. I was actually as puzzled as you all. I was like, wait, this isn't happening in the day? No. Apparently it is not. Instead, you have storms that are actually form overnight. And this could be your risk for severe weather into Tuesday. And that's what we're going to be watching out for here. As I said, things are not set in stone. There could be storms that could form on Monday and be pretty widespread. Your prefrontal convection could still exist, and you could have the chance for some severe weather on Monday. But it seems as of right now, according to this model, that it is more of an overnight threat. And just by looking at the dew points, this agrees with me for the most part that you have a strong dry line right here extending from Wisconsin all the way down into Oklahoma. And this cold front really just surges on through and creates all your severe weather. So you can see your dew points extend all the way up into the 60s into Michigan. It gets moist in Michigan. Across the board here, very moist. Some areas in the deep south even get up into the 70s, same with Texas. But the area of interest here is what we are going to want to watch out for. And there is the potential for some severe weather within these areas, especially with how much moisture there is here. Convective available potential energy numbers are pretty high, I will admit. And I remind you all that 2,000 joules per kilogram and above is typically the amount that you want for severe weather especially for strong supercells. And we have some amounts that are higher than that. Some of these reds indicate 3,000 joules per kilogram. The purples indicate 4,000 joules per kilogram. So there's a huge displacement between warm air rising and cold air sinking. The displacement between the two show a lot of energy here, and we're just really going to have to watch out for this event, especially since if thunderstorms do form within some of these areas that have larger amounts of CAPE, you could potentially be seeing some very large amounts of hail within some of these areas. I mean, it's just nothing more to it, honestly. Just there's a lot of energy, a lot of things for thunderstorms to grow off of, and even become relatively strong. So definitely something we're going to have to monitor. I'm going to have more information on this event as we get into tomorrow. So tomorrow morning's video should get pretty interesting. And then Monday morning's video should get pretty interesting as well. Let's talk about wind shear here for a second. Lower level jet. This is 850 millibar. Low level jet. You can see most of these are pretty strong here coming out from the south and west. So you have your southwesterlies for the most part, and then yeah, it's pretty strong. I mean, 30 to 40 knots of wind shear is not too bad. It's not as strong as what's happening in, you know, Dixie Alley into the deep south, but it still has a strong low level jet. Your upper level jet, however, not so strong. It's not as good as what it needs to be for the most part. You can see some of these areas barely breach over 40 knots of wind shear. Anything in that is in green is 40 knots of wind shear. So what this tells me, more or less, that it's not going to be as much of a tornado risk, even though there is some veering in the atmosphere. This tells me that it's going to be a bit more of a linear threat, as well as a surface-based tornado threat. It's not going to have a lot of huge supercells, if you will, that are going to be like super cyclic. That's what this tells me. Large hail, damaging winds, strong damaging winds, not as much of a tornado threat, but we're going to have to continue to watch out for this as this continues to transpire. All right, last thing is that I want to thank all of our channel members here. All of these people across the board have supported the channel for as long as they have. Some more than others, but it doesn't really matter in my honest opinion. So thank you to all the people on screen who have became channel members. I call them sponsors for the most part because they're basically sponsoring my channel every month. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And thank you for tuning into the channel. So that's going to be it from me. If you guys did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, turn on notifications if you want to be updated with all the stuff that I do on my channel. Share this with friends and family and on social media because, you know, I'm pretty sure some people may want to hear this information that I'm hopefully presuming is accurate. I try to be as accurate as possible, but yeah, if you guys want to share this with friends and family on social media so they can be up to date as well, that would be greatly appreciated. I appreciate all the support, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, everyone.